I'm Amber Harper from the Burned In Teacher Podcast and a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hey, everybody, it's me. Say, you want to come inside my clubhouse? Well, all right, let's go. Oh, I almost forgot. To make the clubhouse appear, we get to say the magic words. Say it with me.
Strike up the band. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Chris Nessie. The House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. I discuss technology that is changing our classrooms and schools, and I share tools and tips that you can hear today and use tomorrow. You're going to hear the stories of teachers, leaders, and creators just like you. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way you teach and how your students learn. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to episode 173 of the House of EdTech podcast. So glad you're here, making this show a part of your anytime, anywhere professional development. Got a great episode planned for you today. As you can tell by the beginning and also by the title, today we are talking about the app Clubhouse. And we're talking about Clubhouse for educators. So I'm going to be sharing my experience. I'm going to explain what Clubhouse is. I'm going to give my opinion on what I think the value of Clubhouse is for educators. And I'm not alone. I solicited some responses from people I know to talk about their experience with Clubhouse. So we are going to hear from Bonnie Nieves, Don Sturm, Eric Geis, and I've got a great conversation in full with the fabulous Lisa Dabbs. And that'll be coming up a little bit later in the episode. But I am very, very excited about this app and what it can do. And I can't wait to share this with you. So buckle up, have an open mind. And if you're on Clubhouse, I think that this is going to jive with you. I think we can say that. And if you're not on Clubhouse, keep an open mind. Okay. I have yet to steer you astray. So trust me. Remember, it was over a year ago, I did a whole episode about TikTok. And TikTok is still, I think, a valuable thing for educators. And I'm very excited about what Clubhouse is going to do for connecting educators, what it's going to do for professional development. So stay tuned. Even if you are on an Android device, which at the time that I'm recording this, Clubhouse is not available for Android, do not skip this episode because all good apps will eventually come to the platform that you are on. So if you're an Android user, be patient. It's coming. I can't make promises, but I'm pretty sure that the Clubhouse folks are working on this. So let's get right into this. And before I get to all the Clubhouse stuff, almost overshadowed, I have a great recommendation for you today. So let's do that. Let's get the recommendation in, and then let's head over to the Clubhouse. All right, this episode's House of EdTech recommendation comes from, shout out to the great Alfonso Mendoza, the Fonz from My EdTech Life. A couple of weeks ago, the Fonz came on with me during my TCEA live streams that I did on YouTube. By the way, if you're not subscribed on YouTube, head over to chrisnessie.com/YouTube so you get notified about when I go live and I do these things for conferences. But anyway, so one of the nights, the Fonz talks about this awesome website called Kumo Space, KUMOSPACE.com. And he shows this to me on the live stream, and I am immediately blown away by what Kumo Space can do. I then tried it with my Rutgers students. I have now tried it with colleagues that I work with in the high school, and I've tried it with my high school students. This thing is awesome. Okay. And again, this whole episode is full of awesomeness, but let me devote this little bit of time to Kumo Space. What is it? It is a free, immersive video chat built for groups. Now, you might be thinking, isn't that what Zoom does? Isn't that what a Google Meet does? Or Skype or FaceTime? The key word here is immersive. Okay. This is a different type of video chat experience. You can say goodbye to boring video calls, and you can literally get started in about 10 seconds of going to kumospace.com. Kumo Space is currently used by teams at Google, Facebook, NASA, and many more. Again, go to kumospace.com. What does it allow you to do? You can create break-free breakout rooms. Now, what does that mean? Meaning, I want you to break free of breakout rooms. The Google Meet breakout rooms suck. Okay. I'm going to be honest. Okay. They are just not that great. Right. And there's even issues with the Zoom ones. The biggest issue is, I know of, that you put kids in a meet, you put them in a breakout room, and you have no idea what they're doing. You don't know if your students are engaged. You don't know if they're even talking or looking at each other or doing the work, because you have to hop from room to room to room. And typically when you arrive, that's when they'll start to talk and, make it look like they're doing something. One of the other things I don't like is, in general with Google Meet, with the chat, you don't see a whole record of the chat. So if I get kicked out of the room and I come back in, I don't see the chat history. A kid shows up late to class, they don't see the chat history. So there's issues. Now, there is a clunky plugin you can get that if your computer is powerful enough, you can see all the breakout rooms and you can talk to all of them at the same time and you can see what's going on in them. But again, you got to have a computer that's got a hefty amount of RAM and memory and graphic processing power. And even then, it's kind of clunky. All right. I've been using it a little bit at the beginning of the school year, and I had to abandon that before breakout rooms even came. All right. So a little clunky. Kumo Space, the only thing I could compare it to, and I might be dating myself, would be color forms. If you remember color forms, this is what this is, but it's digital. Okay. So it utilizes spatial audio where you're all in a virtual space. You can have your cameras on or off. Preferably your microphone should be on. And in this virtual space that is two-dimensional, you can be up to 25 people. And spatial audio means when you are near somebody else and your little video avatar is near somebody else or within proximity to people, you can hear and have conversations. And it's simultaneous, just like in real life, which is super cool. All right. I hope at some point while I'm talking about this, you pause this episode and you go check out Kumo Space. In fact, pause the episode and go check it out. Okay, welcome back. I'm glad you paused it and you checked it out. It is better than Google Meet breakout rooms. I think it's better than Zoom. You can chat. You can be in a virtual classroom where I can move around this virtual room and my kids can be grouped and I can have them talking to each other without interrupting each other. Okay. They can choose to have their video on or off. I can share my screen and do a presentation. And I think this is really cool and it's worth checking out. Currently, it is free. And again, you can have a virtual room up to 25 people and you can create up to 4 rooms on your account. So for example, I have kumospace.com/something I'm not ready to share publicly yet, but when I do share that link, there would be 4 rooms available. Okay. And when you get there, you can choose which room you want to go in. So the other thing that I think this could be really cool for would be virtual conferences where you can have, maybe you build a Google site and you have a couple of people who create their 4 free rooms and you link to the rooms. I think you could run EdCamp Kumo Space. I might be the one to run it, but maybe this is something you want to jump on. Hey, you know what? If you want to run EdCamp Kumo Space, reach out to me and let's put our heads together and figure out how we can run a really awesome EdCamp experience. Or let me know if you try this. Go to kumospace.com. Again, this is a long-winded House of EdTech recommendation, but it is worth it. Go check out Kumospace, KUMOSPACE.com, and let me know what you think. Try it with some colleagues. Try it with some family members. There are some really cool things I think you can do with this, but you got to go check it out for yourself. And that's my recommendation for this episode. All right, time for the featured content. Hopefully you played with Kumospace, and now, you're back here in the episode. And today, we are focusing on Clubhouse. All right? Yes, using the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse thing at the beginning, yes, made me laugh, and I thought it was pretty creative. I hope you did too. It's kind of what I like to do here on the podcast, is have fun and be creative. But speaking of having fun, classic Chris transition, let's talk about Clubhouse. First, what is Clubhouse? Clubhouse is currently an invite-only audio platform. It's currently for iOS only, and that's as I record this in February of 2021. It's an app where users can start conversations, listen into conversations, and network. When you open the app, you'll find one spot to search for users or clubs, which are like groups. You search for these things for people or for clubs that you'd like to follow. There's a built-in calendar which will show you upcoming events based on interests you selected when you first signed up. You can see what rooms other people are a part of, and you can jump around and you can listen in. You can raise your hand if you'd like to be invited up to the virtual stage. It's really that simple. Okay. My username on there is @Mr. Nessie, and this is an amazing app. It's like listening to the radio, but it's also like being at a conference, or like being in the hallway at a conference, or, running around an EdCamp from room to room. It's an amazing audio only app. It's like Voxer, but live, which again, that's radio when you can listen in on other people talking. My wife and I, Caitlin, we joked around as I've been playing with this app. She's like, this is like a party line. And that was a new term to me, so I had to have her explain to me what a party line was. And if you're not aware of what a party line was, that's, back in the day when you picked up your phone and the lines were crossed and you could listen in and hear other people's conversations. And if you started to talk, they could hear you. So that's kind of what Clubhouse is. So why am I making a whole episode about this? Well, let's ask the question, what is the value of Clubhouse for educators? Here's my thoughts. Clubhouse can provide a few different ways for you to participate in professional development. And let's really be honest. Let's just call it personal development. That's my whole theory now. You grow as a person, you will grow as a professional. So that's what I'm going to stick with. There are opportunities to join in these rooms, listen in on these conversations, or start a room with a group of people and talk about a topic of your choice. Talk about control. If you like to have control over your learning, this is an app for you. This combination of scheduled sessions and impromptu rooms give the feel of a structured conference with, as I said earlier, this EdCamp-like component. Clubhouse doesn't feel like Twitter, where you can follow or you can, favorite your hashtag education event and get some useful insights from those in the discussion. The audio in Clubhouse is not at all like a text-based discussion where the expression of ideas can often be hampered or hindered by clumsy expression, typos, character limits, long and complex threads, and a timeline that scrolls past so quickly it's hard to keep up. You know your favorite Twitter chat. It's a busy half hour or an hour, and it's tough to keep up with. Audio demands more attention and effort, which is not a bad thing because speakers feel more empowered to express themselves in a much more natural way. But it may be that a counter effect is one that lurks longer and harder as there is more to take in. All right. Next thing I want to talk about is how am I using Clubhouse? Now, I've only been on it for about a month. Okay. And I've spent a majority of the last 30 days lurking, not in a creepy way, but kind of taking it in, seeing what this is all about. At this point, I have started to host rooms. One of my first was literally called Talking EdTech While Waiting for Tacos, because I went to my favorite Mexican restaurant near where I live to get takeout, and I decided to start a room while I was waiting for tacos. And I didn't think anything was going to happen, but before I knew it, I was engaged in a conversation with people I knew, people I didn't know who I just met, and the room was pretty hopping and popping for about 25 minutes. It was fun. It was engaging. Clubhouse is letting me explore my interests. So I'm able to see rooms about podcasting and social media and technology. It's catered to me. The app is learning who I am and what I'm interested in, and who I follow and who follows me also shapes how the app makes recommendations to me. I am getting the opportunity to listen to conversations and engage in conversations that I wouldn't normally get the chance to jump into. There are big time, celebrities, not the edgy celebrity. I'm talking like real celebrities who are on there, and they're accessible in ways that you can't imagine. As I'm recording this, I was listening in on a room with Bethany Frankel from The Real Housewives of New York, formerly, Eric Stone Street, Cam from Modern Family, Katie Couric, and the three of them were just having a conversation, and all these people could listen in, and they started letting people, like regular people like me, I didn't get to go up, but people like me, go up, ask, engage, and have a conversation with them. Okay. I've been in rooms with Gary Vee, other authors, right, that are just having conversations and engaging with people, engaging with their communities and their audiences. And that's very powerful. It's relationships. That's what makes everything work. And that's one of the things I think makes this app so powerful. It's like a 24-hour-a-day conference. And again, it really resembles an EdCamp. Anyone can start a conversation, and you can leave a conversation at any time. The button actually says leave quietly, so you don't have to say goodbye. There's no chatting. There's no texting. You're either listening or you're participating. You're either on the stage or you're in the audience. It's really very simple. Now, this might be trendy, but I don't think I've led you astray, and I promise you that you will get value. Now, again, if you are an iPhone user, great. The app is iOS only currently, as I am talking about this in February 2021. Hopefully, sooner rather than later, there is an Android version available, and it's easier to get in. You can't just go and sign up. You need to get invited to the app. And actually, as I record this, I have 6 invites available. So if you are interested in checking out Clubhouse, send me an email, feedback@chrisnessy.com, and let me know if you want an invite. Now, the invite, you would need to give me your phone number, because one of the other good things about this app is you're not going to get fake people on there, right? So you join with your phone number. You have to use your real name, and it's you. So if you go on there and you search Mr. Nessy and you find the one account that's Mr. Nessy, that's me. Okay. When I search you, it's going to be you. So if you're interested, let me know. Send me an email. And if I still have invites, I'd be happy to invite you, because you're a listener of this podcast. I trust you. So let me know. What can Clubhouse do for you as a teacher? Here are 6 tips that I've put together for you. Number 1, if you can get an invite from someone, get it. Why not? I've already offered it to you. So again, if I still have one available and I can get you in, I want to get you into this. Number 2, listen. The good Lord above gave you one mouth and 2 ears. Listen twice as much as you speak. When you first get on, listen, listen, listen. Number 3, explore all of your interests. You don't just have to be a part of teaching communities. You are more than just a teacher. Okay. I am more than just an educator or a podcaster. So there's other content that I can get on this app. Explore all of your interests and your passions. Number 4, connect and follow people who are interesting to you. When you get into rooms and people are talking, see who else is in there. As Simon Sinek says in many of his talks, we're always looking to find people who believe what we believe. And if you find yourself in one of these Clubhouse rooms talking with people or listening to people about a topic you're interested in, they might be worth connecting to. And you might find yourself connecting with people who you didn't think it was possible to connect with. Number 5, get involved and raise your hand. It's literally, that's what to call it in the app. You raise your hand. Get involved, share, contribute to the conversation. It's super valuable. Number 6, start your own conversation. Start a room. If you've done the EdCamp thing, you know what this is like to go put your name on the Post-it and ask a question. Start a room with a question. You can learn. People will come to you. It's super easy and it's super valuable. I hope that I see you on there. Now, I've talked about what Clubhouse is. I've talked about what I think the value is for you as an educator. I've shared how I'm using Clubhouse, and I've just given you some tips. Now let's share and let's see how other people are using Clubhouse. First up, got an email from Tisha Poncio, and she wrote me after I put the call out on Twitter. She shared the following, quote, Clubhouse has afforded me the opportunity to connect with people in my industry in a different way. Clubhouse allows me to be a listener, participant, or leader of discussions and learning. I think it gives me an authentic connection with those I may or may not have connected with before. The organic flow of discussion is much smoother than House Party or Voxer, and I find it very valuable, and I've learned a lot in a very short amount of time. End quote. Thank you for sharing that, Ms. Poncio. Next up, got a voicemail from Bonnie Nieves. Take it away, Bonnie.
Hey, Chris, this is Bonnie Nieves leaving a message about my thoughts on Clubhouse. I feel like Clubhouse is extremely powerful for all educators because it's like an EdCamp 24 hours a day. You can choose whichever room you want to go into, and while you are in that room, you can browse through the profiles of the people who are there and follow them on Clubhouse or Twitter or Instagram. Then when you go into the hallway by swiping all rooms and looking where other people are, you can see, or you see which other rooms are open. You can see the topics and how many people are in there, and you can see how many people are speaking versus how many people are listening, which is also really valuable because you go to a room based on whether you feel like you can contribute to the conversation or if you just want to sit and listen and learn from people who are doing the speaking. Then you can also go to that green dot on the bottom that shows you where the people you follow are, and if they're in a room that you feel is interesting, you can just join that room right from there, or you can open a room with that person in it, start your own conversation, or leave the room closed so that you can have the discussion just with the people you invited. And then it adds an even additional layer because you can join rooms or create rooms within clubs which focus on a particular interest, or open the rooms up to anyone whether they're in the club or not. And I just updated my app today. I know one of the additions is that you can share the room you're in more easily with the people that follow you instead of just having to ping individual people, I guess, which would be an awesome thing. But there is much to love about Clubhouse. I am super fired up.
Thank you, Bonnie. And her message got cut off there. She had a lot to say, and the House of EdTech voicemail only lets you go so far. But thank you, Bonnie, for calling in. And if you're not connected with Bonnie on Twitter, she is at Biology Goddess. I'll have a link for that out in the show notes at chrisnessy.com/173. And of course, if you get onto Clubhouse, you want to connect with Bonnie and just type in her name, Bonnie Nieves. Next up, we got Don Sturm. Take it away, Don.
Hey, Chris, this is Don Sturm. I'm a tech integration specialist, and answering your question about Clubhouse and the benefits. I've been on Clubhouse now for about a month, and I love it. I love the synchronous discussion. I'm a Voxer fan also, but I like the synchronous discussion. I like it's a new group of people. I think it is, for me, being a white male, it is nice to be in groups where I'm listening more and where there is just more of an eclectic group of people. So, again, I am really enjoying the platform.
Thank you for checking in, Don. Really appreciate it. And if you're not connected with Don on Twitter, he is at SturmDon, SturmDon. And of course, I will link out to that at chrisnessy.com/173. And again, when you get on Clubhouse, or if you're already there, make sure you connect with Don. Prior to this, I wasn't connected with Don, but through Clubhouse, now connected, and here he is on the House of EdTech podcast. So again, super fun times. Clubhouse is the place to be. And here's a good friend of the podcast and fellow New Jersey educator, Eric Geis, checking in. Eric, what do you got?
Hey, Chris. Eric Geis here. Thanks for posting the question about Clubhouse. I think it's going to be a fantastic tool for educators. Me personally, I'm using it primarily just to fill some downtime. That way I can listen while doing other activities throughout my day, whether it's my lunch hour or if I have 15 minutes before school starts, just to get some ideas and some things to think about throughout the day, I think is very important. I will tell you what we need is for educators to get onto Clubhouse and start working towards their own clubs or just starting their own rooms. Right now, I see a lot of stuff out there for marketers, some people that are trying to promote their own product. But if we could get some genuine discussion in there, some instant professional development or PLC time or anything along those lines, I think it would be a better space for educators. So I see great promise in this product. I don't think it's there yet, but I think once we all figure it out, I think it's going to be a good thing for educators.
Thank you for checking in, Eric. And parts of what you share, I agree with. I think it is there. I think it is going to continue to develop and be a powerful force for learning. Again, we have people from all industries all over the world learning through these conversations. And the art of conversation, for the last few years, I have thought, was dying. Not dead, but dying, where it's easier to send an email or a text or, I've struggled, not me personally, but to get, voice feedback, even here on the podcast. But an app like this certainly encourages us to literally use our voice. So there you go. Eric is on Twitter. He is at GeisGotTechEd. There'll be a link out in the show notes. And now I want to share a conversation I had with Lisa Dabbs. And let's dive right into this. And Lisa was a wonderful guest. So let's dive right into this. And joining me now here on this episode of the podcast as we continue to talk about and highlight what Clubhouse can do for you as an educator, I'm very excited to welcome to the show Ms. Lisa Dabbs. Lisa is an educator from California, and she has worn many hats in her distinguished career. And I'm excited to have her here now to talk about Clubhouse. Welcome to the House of EdTech, Lisa.
Thank you, Chris. I am so grateful to be here. And I think it's just wonderful what you're doing to support the education community, not only across the country, but around the world. It's just wonderful.
I know. I still get blown away by the fact that this podcast goes around the world. And I'm just this guy who teaches high school history in New Jersey. And I get to make a difference in a small way. So it is very exciting.
Absolutely.
So you are, like me, using Clubhouse, this new hot app that is currently iOS only. But earlier in the episode, I talked about what it does and how it works. But I've got you here. You're using it. You're an educator, at heart. How are you using and leveraging Clubhouse? The benefits, even the pitfalls. I would love to just share your perspective on it.
So I had seen months ago on my Instagram feed, because I follow some very large social media influencers, and I've actually gotten to meet one of them, and I won't share her name here, but she's absolutely incredible. And I saw that she was posting, join me on Clubhouse. And I listened to her podcast. I've been in person with her at her events in San Diego, and I've been in her in-person events on Facebook. So I clicked on her little link that was available there on Instagram, and it said, oh, sorry, you can't join. And I thought, okay, now that's weird, because I know this woman, she's incredible, that she didn't put a caveat that said, unless your iOS device or you're been invited, you can't join. So I said, oh, well, it's just probably something for just high-level influencers, Chris. So months later, my very good friend, and I am going to mention her because I adore her, Ann Oro, and she's in New Jersey. So, Chris, I don't know if you know Ann Oro.
I know Ann very well. We've been to EdCamps and many events, so Ann is a wonderful person.
Oh, that's great. Well, she is a dear, dear friend of mine. And, she was the assistant superintendent in a large archdiocese in her area, and now she's moved into working with the higher ed space. But I meet with her about once a week to chat about our goals and our visions for education. And she said, Lisa, have you heard about Clubhouse? And I said, yes. She said, would you like an invite? And I'm like, yes. So, Chris, it was really interesting, and I see your smile. It was really interesting. So I jumped on there, and of course, there's so many portions of the app when you first join that are just overwhelming to a new user. Follow these people, follow that person, put your interests on. And so I will share that my jumping into the app, it's not for the faint of heart. You have to be prepared to navigate the app. So what I did, Chris, was I went into YouTube immediately, and I Googled, and I put into the YouTube search Clubhouse and how to use it. And that solved all the issues for me, Chris.
Isn't YouTube University the best?
My gosh, when my youngest son used to tell me, Mom, I'm on YouTube, I would think like, oh, what is he doing there? What is he looking at? And now, Chris, how often do we use it as adults, all the time? And that solved so many issues for me, Chris, when I first jumped on. Because I did have to say that and share that with your audience, because when you say, well, how did you start to use it? I want your listeners to know that jumping on a YouTube that how to use Clubhouse is absolutely essential, I think, so you can figure out the ins and outs before you jump on. So after I saw that, I said, okay, now I get it. So as I came into the app, what I did was I began going into rooms, Chris, that were Clubhouse 101, tips and tricks. Okay, I see you shaking your head. And so I said, okay, I'm going to start here, Clubhouse 101. And Chris, for 3 weeks, I jumped in and out of many of the foundational aspects of Clubhouse for new users, just like we would do with any educational technology app that we're using, be it Flipgrid or others. I did the same thing. And so as I started to go into those 101 rooms, I began to be able to do all kinds of things, which was fix my photo, adjust my bio, make sure that my social media, Twitter and Instagram were connected there. My email was there. You can go into my DMs if you want to connect. So it just opened up this entire landscape for me of how to really begin connecting.
Now we're recording this. It's, just about Valentine's Day here in 2021. When you're talking about doing this learning, and I think that's a great tip to get in the water, dive into the pool, but it sounds like you did a lot more listening and observing before you decided to take action. And you were doing little things along the way to set yourself up for success. But when did you, again, based on what we're having this conversation, when did you get on to Clubhouse?
I actually got onto Clubhouse. It's not even been a month. So I joined on January 14th. So Valentine's Day.
So this is moving pretty quick.
Yes. But Chris, for your listeners, your point is exactly the one that I wanted to make in my conversation with you, that if you want to set yourself up for success, like anything we do as educators, you need to listen and learn first, right? You need to lurk, right? We talk about lurking and learning,
yes.
right? On Twitter, we'll say that all the time. So I lurked and learned. But Chris, here's the beauty. I could jump into rooms on all kinds of industry talks, from speaking in front of audiences, from health and wellness to, Bitcoin, to finance, to nonprofits, to social media marketing. So I made sure, Chris, to go into all of those rooms to, again, pick up the nuggets that I would need when I began to launch my own room or rooms to support my educational folks. And, my passion, Chris, for many years was to support and mentor new teachers. And I had a chat on Twitter for 8 years that I ran pretty much all by myself. And I have taken that, though, moving forward now, as my passion is to elevate the voices of women in educational leadership. And so as I was pulling nuggets, I said, okay, I know what I want to do now. I know how I can do it, and I know how I'm going to do it. And so when I finally pushed the button, as this wonderful man that I've connected to, social media marketer, young fellow, and I will mention his name, Brian Fanzo, recommended, I had already been fortunate to have about 400 people following me by that time. So in other words, I wasn't in an echo chamber where, okay, here's Lisa, she opened a room and nobody's coming in. So that was the benefit of waiting, Chris, because I know that educators in Clubhouse are new. They're opening up rooms and there's 2 people there. So I think that we have to be very, strategic, right? Aren't we strategic as educators, right?
Strategic, you have to be intentional.
Exactly. The same mindset that we have as an educator, we need to apply to Clubhouse. Because by doing that, I was able to bring even more people into rooms. They saw that I had about 450 followers by that time. And so, unfortunately or fortunately, Chris, that then brings you that street cred, if you will. Oh, well, Mrs. Daz, Lisa Daz, she has 400 some followers. She must have something important to share. Now, I could have 1 follower and have a passion to serve, but in this application, because follower counts matter, and at some point, I would love for you to chat with someone about the analytics, which I've been learning about, it matters. Your follower count matters. And if you want to begin to open up a room, say you've been on there for a week and you only have 10 to 15 followers, you need to be able to bring another moderator in with you, Chris, who has more followers, maybe 2 or 3, because we can talk, if you want, for a moment about the analytics and how it works. But the bottom line is, if you're passionate and you have a community to serve, as I do, you need to make sure that you have folks in the room supporting you so that your message can be heard.
I thoroughly agree, because when I got on there, I was looking for people to follow. I was invited by, another educator friend of mine, and I looked to see, all right, who's following him? Who is he following? And then I started to build my connections there. And what I found was, yes, I'm starting to see a lot of the same people that I see and I am connected with on, say, Twitter. But because of the topics that I chose, and you have the ability on Clubhouse to choose your interests. So, I'm interested in podcasting, content creation, education, baseball. So, I diversified, what I'm interested in on the app. So now I'm being exposed to and being suggested many different types of conversations. And I'm finding, and I'm sure you're seeing this too, that when you go into these different types of rooms and you start to connect with people who are bringing value to the conversations on the stage, as they say, now that also plays into the algorithm as what's recommended and how you get the notifications. And yeah, so it is very, very, very powerful.
Yes, absolutely, Chris. And I want to share with your listeners that those algorithms are something that we as educators oftentimes fail to research, but our brothers and sisters in social media influencers, I'm talking about those large influencers with thousands and thousands of followers, they've already researched that. They already know. So let me just share this little tip with educators. And Chris, you might have already figured this out. When you are in the application and you open a room or you join a room or you've planned a room and then you open it and you come on stage and you invite others to come on stage, everyone that's following you, right, gets a notification. However, your metrics rate hundreds of times higher if you are on the stage as a speaker, and even more so, Chris, if you are on the stage as a moderator. So again, as educators, we have just as much of a passion to serve as our big-time influencer colleagues, our brothers and sisters have in their market industry. And so it's important for us to know this because I see educators opening up rooms with one moderator. Now, Chris, that's not going to help to amplify their message. But if they invite 3 or 4 more, the amplification of that message just grows because now that single person who might only have 100 followers brings in others with 4, 7, 8, 1,000 followers, all passionate educators. The amplification of that message is huge, and it resonates out into the Clubhouse app.
It's, I think, by definition, the technical example of there's power in numbers. You know, prior to this conversation that we're having, my good friends AJ Bianco and Stacy Lindis, we host also Podcast PD, and we decided to do a room together just talking about growing and using our network. And with the 3 of us being in the room, that room grew very quickly. And what we anticipated to be a 60-minute conversation, we were on for 2 hours, and we had a ball, and we were bringing all sorts of people on and meeting new people. We got value. The people who were in the room got value. And, you know, individually, we're still very new to the platform, but we see the potential, and you also see the potential. And what types of, and as I shift gears a little bit, what types of conversations are you starting? I know you mentioned, you know, being interested in empowering women and interested in leadership. Is that the only types of rooms you are creating, or what other types of conversations have you found yourself getting involved in or interested in?
Yes, I am hosting a regular room every Wednesday evening at 5 Pacific time for women in educational leadership. But I also decided to join forces with a couple of other amazing women who cared about the fact that new educators on the platform as it begins to roll out were not aware, and we didn't want them to stumble. We are now hosting every week 30 tips in 30 minutes for educators. So you can find that on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific time. And here's the other beauty of it. So I came into a room with this amazing Turkish doctor, Chris, but I mean amazing. He was in Turkey. He's now in the U.S. The man is phenomenal. And not only is he phenomenal, he has a heart to serve. He is an angel investor. And one of his prime things that he does as a doctor is he supports educational startups. So I saw him post this room 3 weeks ago, and I thought, oh, this would be great, as you say, other interests. I jumped into his room. Chris, the man doesn't know me. He's never known me, but just seeing my passion to serve, because he asked me to come up and speak because of the fact that I'm a school board member and that I get pitched, Chris, throughout on my LinkedIn about, here's my program, what do you think? And so I began to speak. He now has me on his team, and I moderate his room every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And for any startups listening, it might be too late, but we have a pitch session on Monday where ed startups are each going to be given 4 minutes to pitch. So that's another room that I'm in. Another room that I'm moderating is one that is centered around EdTech and leadership with that. So we know as a foundational piece as teachers, EdTech is shiny and beautiful, But if you don't have your pedagogy to accompany your EdTech, then there's no reason why you should be using EdTech until your pedagogy is solid, right? We always say it's not about the tool, it's about the pedagogy. So I'm moderating in another room where we talk about the fact that there are all these beautiful, shiny objects, but how are you making sure that you're using that EdTech to partner with your pedagogy so that as you're serving children in your district, or if you're a leader, you're making sure that your teachers have the supports to be able to do that. So those are just a few of the rooms that I'm moderating now, but I have some plans for other things, Chris. So stay tuned.
I will certainly stay tuned because I do follow you on Clubhouse. We're connected on Twitter. For the new teacher who is listening to this, who decides to take the plunge, find an invite, and make their way onto the platform, first, what is your username on Clubhouse so they can look for you? I actually, that's a dumb question because they could just search for your name, which is, Lisa Dabbs.
Yes. And Chris, no, but listen, this is the amazing thing. One of the 30 tips that I shared last week, and I probably will repeat some of them because between the three of us women leading this, we shared 10 tips each, is the fact that, Chris, unlike any other platform, including Facebook, Clubhouse has this inherent, beautiful search engine built in where you can search by name, business, industry, emoji, and for those of us that are people of color, I'm a second generation Latina, you could actually put in an emoji that is the facial color of the folks that you're interested in connecting with, and those people will populate in that search. Did you know that, Chris?
I did not. So I did not realize you could search by emoji. I know that on the platform, yes, emojis are very popular. Again, from doing what you did, being in rooms and seeing how people decorate their profile, I thought, oh, that's cool. You could put emojis. But now to know that there's actually a purpose behind it, excellent. Yes. That is great to know.
Yes. And Chris, the Clubhouse founders are pretty smart. If you put an apple in your name or in your bio, you will populate if somebody puts an apple, because inherent in the algorithm of the application and the analytics, the apple is connected to teaching. Just thought I'd share that little tidbit.
When we get off of this, and I got the phone right here, but I will be adding an apple somewhere in my profile. So that is...
Yes, absolutely.
So folks, there you go. So I've been saying for 7 years that I am learner zero on this podcast, and Lisa Dabbs just schooled me on emojis. So there we go. Now, Lisa, before I let you go, and you've been very gracious with your time here on this episode,
sure.
I've shared in this episode a lot of the good things, and I know that I've shared some thoughts on what could be negatives. From your perspective and in your experience in about a month's time, are there any things that teachers should be cautious of when using this app?
Yes, I would say, number one, Chris, there are some cliques forming, even in our own industry. I would urge educators jumping in to, yes, follow those people that we've known on Twitter and that we know have such value to bring. But think about following other educators. Type into the search educator. I have connected now, Chris, with over 50 educators that I didn't even know in my 10 years of being on Twitter that are in North Carolina, South Carolina, the UK, Africa, and it's amazing. And we are going to begin to lead rooms or host rooms together. So that's one of the things that I would say. Try not to stay just in your own clique, if you will. It really is going to limit you in terms of your growth. Secondly, I would say it's the small rooms where the magic happens. We can be drawn again to that shiny thing inside of the shiny object, right? Ooh, there's 1,000 people listening to Gary Vaynerchuk. However,
I've been in there.
You're going to get lost, Chris, in a cacophony of voices. But if you go into a smaller room, 15, 20, 50 educators, you're going to find that you'll be able to look to the left, look to the right, look up and down, and make immediate connections with those that you will want to learn from, grow from, and perhaps begin to host a room with. So those would be some of my 2 tips.
And I really like that second one because I think the in real life equivalent would be I think that's the difference between being in a college lecture of 300 students versus being in a capstone class at the graduate level where it's you and like 7 people and the professor. You get to know people, you can build those relationships. And again, it's not about the tech. I'm not putting this episode together because here's a great ed tech tool. This is about making relationships happen and learning and growing. And this is just what I think is a great tool to do that. Now, whether or not Clubhouse exists years from now, if you're listening to this episode in 2022 or 2023, it's about getting the skill. And I think to some degree, people are going to reacquire the skill and learn how to talk to people. You know, that's why I do an audio podcast, so I can talk to people. You know, people are going to start to have conversations. It's, you know I mentioned it already in this episode. It's like going to an EdCamp or a conference where some of the best things you learn happen in the hallway with those impromptu conversations. It's not always going into the room and seeing what's being projected and presented formally. It's just being able to talk to people. And I think that's the biggest benefit, is you can really have some great relationships and just have some great conversation.
Yes, Chris, I completely agree. And I really hope that a Clubhouse will be sustainable. Some folks are saying that it's a great launch that happened during, this pandemic, but we're hoping that it will be sustainable. And stay tuned, Chris, because if you haven't heard this too, the monetization feature is coming, where brands are going to begin to join, and all across different industries. And folks are going to be paid to moderate in rooms. And just a little secret right now, folks are already being paid to moderate. Yes, which I found to be a little off-putting for me, but you know what? That's okay. However, it's something for us educators, though, to be mindful of. And if it's something that you're doing in the educational tech space, and you work with a company who could benefit from opening up a room on Clubhouse, now is the time probably to set some of that groundwork in place when the monetization does open up, and be able to talk with other companies that you've connected with over time to see if there's interest in amplifying their product and how it can benefit ultimately the teachers and, more importantly, the children that we serve across the country and around the world.
Lisa, thank you so much for spending a few minutes here on this episode of the podcast. If you are not already connected with Lisa and you're on Clubhouse, search for Lisa Dabbs. It's super easy. You can also connect with Lisa on Twitter. If you are not, she is at Teach with Soul, and she's got a great bio there. And connect with Lisa Dabbs and learn and grow with her. And Lisa, thank you for a few minutes here on the House of EdTech.
Thank you so much, Chris.
So here are my final thoughts as we approach the end of this episode. So what do I ultimately think of Clubhouse? If you can't tell, I'm a big fan, and I really think you need to be there if you're not already. Now, of course, with any social media platform, success will come down to the quality of content. For people like you and me, the conversation needs to be practical and useful. Clubhouse is in its early days. It's an infant in terms of what it is, and it has a lot of potential. It remains to be seen what quote-unquote quality looks like on this platform. Still, there certainly seems to be an opportunity to have great discussions around education, at least until the same old voices grab all the eartime. But here's the nice thing. If you don't want to listen to somebody, you can quietly leave the room and start your own conversation. Like any new platform, making waves in the digital ether, Clubhouse will evolve, and it will face the same growing pains as any other new platform. Perhaps it comes down to smart, forward-thinking design that avoids the echo chamber nature of many communities, which I have seen, and I'm sure you have seen on Twitter as well. Podcasts are, of course, passive listening experiences. So is Clubhouse intimacy a plus? I think so. Again, you listening to this podcast is an intimate experience. I am in your head. I am in your AirPods or your headphones or your car with you. Okay? Keep your hands on the wheel. But by encouraging participation, notwithstanding the possibility of people who lurk, and again, you may start out as a lurker like I did, Clubhouse will help educators, and it will help learners find their voice and revive something which we always say is increasingly lost, and that's the art of conversation. This is the closest app that I can get to playing radio and engage people in conversation and ask questions and then shut up and listen. It's going to be powerful. I hope you check it out. I really, really do. Some of the content for this segment was sourced from a great article on EdSurge written by friend of the podcast, Monica Burns. You know her from ClassTechTips.com, but she recently published an article on EdSurge titled How Educators Are Using the Exclusive Social Media App Clubhouse. I will have a link to Monica's post on EdSurge in the show notes for this episode at chrisnessy.com/173. I hope to see you on Clubhouse. Again, I am at Mr. Nessy on Clubhouse. And if you have any questions or comments about it, reach out to me. Go to chrisnessy.com, send me a message, voicemail, email. You should know at this point how you can send me a question or a comment, or connect on Twitter at Mr. Nessy. Now, before we go, we do have to add one more thing to this episode. And of course, that's a House of EdTech VIP. Let's meet them. This episode's House of EdTech VIP is a new connection for me on Twitter, and I'd like to say hello to Trish Hinchman. Trish is a technology integration specialist, a Google certified trainer, an adjunct professor in education technology, frequent presenter and attendee of conferences. She is a lifelong learner, a wife, and a mother of two. Connect with Trish on Twitter. She is at Trish Hinchman, and I will have a link to her handle out at chrisnessy.com/173. Trish, I love what you're doing, and I'm looking forward to learning with you. And congratulations, because you are a House of EdTech VIP. Thanks again for checking out the House of EdTech podcast and making this program a part of your anytime, anywhere professional development. Super huge shout outs and thanks to Bonnie Nieves, Tisha Poncio, Don Sturm, Lisa Dabbs, and Eric Geis for contributing to this episode and sharing your thoughts on Clubhouse. Let's keep this conversation going. I would love to connect with you and hear your thoughts on Clubhouse, as well as the information. Maybe you want to talk to me about Kumo spaces. Let's have that conversation. Go to the show notes. Those are chrisnessy.com/173. And if you want to send me a message, just go to chrisnessy.com and you can contact me there. It's super easy to do. If you enjoy the House of EdTech, here's what I want you to do. Go tell somebody else about this podcast. That's ultimately what I want you to do. I come up with these great episodes. You get value. Go share the love. Share it on social media. Share it in your virtual faculty meeting. Email it to your best friend. Share the podcast. And thank you in advance. The other thing you could do, you could become an awesome supporter of the House of EdTech. My awesome supporter program is powered by Patreon.com, and Patreon allows a consumer of content like you to support a creator of content like me. I want to thank all my patrons, which include Anthony Arnaud from the STEM Class Podcast, Dan Gallagher, find his writings at gallaghertech.edublogs.org, Carlos Garza, aka Mr. G of the Aced Tech Podcast, find that at aced.tech, Peggy George, she's on Twitter at pgeorge, Jeff Herb, my original awesome supporter, connect with Jeff at Jeff Herb on Twitter, Mike Messner, connect with Mike on Twitter at Messner_Mike, Matt Miller of Ditch That Textbook, and sadly, formerly the Google Teacher Podcast, but he's still doing great things with Ditch That Textbook, and Matt actually just joined TikTok. So you can connect with Matt on TikTok, and he's putting out some great videos. Thank you to JP Prezavento from the Bits and Bytes of Education podcast out at jpprez.com. And thank you to Lori Simpson. She is at North L Simpson on Twitter. She's an English teacher from North Jersey. And thank you to Kyle Wilcox at Level Up EdTech. Thank you to all of you for all your support. And if you want to become an awesome supporter yourself, go to chrisnessy.com/awesome. The next episode of the podcast is episode 174. That comes your way on February 28th, 2021. And until next time, thanks for learning with me. And remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try.